Take whatever you're holding right now, your phone, your laptop, and think about the last thing you made on it. A photo you edited, a document you saved, a little piece of you turned into a file. You think you own that file. I need you to sit with that word for a second. Own. Now, part of you is already bracing for this. Another video about some greedy company that traps you. I felt you do it. Let it go. That's not what this is. What I want to show you is quieter than a villain. It's a shape, a mold. Something two men figured out in a garage 4 decades ago. So well that most people never even saw it happen. And here's the part that should bother you. The tools you love the most, the free ones, the ones you're grateful for, they're pressing you into that exact same mold right now. And you're the one holding still for it. You think you're the customer. Give me a few minutes. You might walk away realizing you were the clay. So let me introduce you to the two men. The year is 1982. A man named John Warnock is sitting in a house in Los Altos, California. And he is, by most measures, a failure at something. Not a small something. He'd spent years building a way to describe a page, any page, to a printer. Letters, curves, images, all of it, in one clean language a machine could read. He built it inside a giant company. And that giant company looked at his life's work and basically said, "No thanks. We'll keep it in-house. It's a feature, not a business." Think about that for a second. The thing that would one day sit underneath the entire modern world. Courtrooms, contracts, every tax form you've ever sweated over, was once a thing a big company shrugged at. So Warnock did what people do when they can't let go. He walked out. He took a colleague with him, a quieter man named Charles Geschke, and the two of them started their own company in a garage. They named it after the creek that ran behind Warnock's house, Adobe Creek. That's it. That's the whole origin of the name. A little stream in the back of a house, two middle-aged men, one rejected idea, a creek. Now here's the part I love, because it's the part nobody tells you. They almost sold the whole thing. Early on, Steve Jobs came knocking. He wanted to just buy them outright. And they said no. They didn't want to be a feature inside someone else's machine. They'd already lived that. They wanted to own the language itself. Own the language. Remember that phrase. It's going to come back and mean something very different by the end of this. Because that instinct, the refusal to be a small part of someone else's empire, is the exact seed the whole mold grows from. These weren't cynical men. By every account, Warnock and Geschke were decent, brilliant, generous people. Geschke was once kidnapped at gunpoint and held for days. And when it was over, he went back to work and stayed the kind of man employees followed for life. These are not villains. Hold on to that. It matters more than any number I'm going to show you, because the trap I'm describing was not built by bad people. That's a whole uncomfortable point. It was built by good ones, solving a real problem, one reasonable decision at a time. Here's how the first decision looked. They had this beautiful printing language, and then they built something on top of it. A way to freeze a document so it looked exactly the same on every screen, every printer, every machine on Earth. The portable document format, the PDF. And in 1993, they made a choice that looked, on paper, like charity. They gave the reader away, free, forever. Everyone could open a PDF. Nobody had to pay. And the tech world at the time thought that was a little naive. You built this gorgeous thing and you're just handing it out. But watch the shape of it. When you give away the key to a room, and slowly the whole world moves its furniture into that room, its laws, its money, its memories, you don't need to charge admission anymore. You already own the walls. You own the floor. You own the language every single person in there is speaking. That's not charity. That's the most patient business model ever drawn up. You lose a little money now to own the ground forever. And it works so completely that you've never once in your entire life thought to ask who owns the PDF. It's just there, like air, like a sidewalk. That's what winning actually looks like. Not a logo you love, a thing so ordinary you forgot a company is standing underneath it. But a free reader doesn't pay the bills. So the two men needed a second move, a way to turn all that quiet ground into actual money. And the machine they built to do it is still running today. It ran while you slept last night. Let me show you how it works. The machine has 3 walls. Once you see them, you'll never look at any software the same way again. The first wall is the format. When you save a Photoshop file, it doesn't just save your picture. It saves your layers, your masks, your edits, the whole history of how you got there. Every decision stacked and preserved. And it saves all of that in a language only Adobe speaks fluently. So the file isn't really a file. It's a record of your thinking, written in someone else's handwriting. You can walk out anytime you want. You just can't take your past with you in a form anyone else can read. The second wall is a habit. 10, 15 years of muscle memory. Every shortcut living in your fingers. Every keystroke you don't have to think about anymore. That's not loyalty. Loyalty is a choice you make on purpose. This is deeper than choice. This is your own hands quietly voting to stay every single day without asking you first. And the third wall, the one they built in the year 2012, is the quietest of all. That was the year Adobe stopped selling you the software and started renting it to you instead. You used to buy Photoshop. It sat on your machine. It was yours, the way a hammer is yours. Bought once, kept forever. And then, almost overnight, the deal changed. Now you don't own it. You rent it. And the day you stop paying, the door quietly locks. The app you built your entire craft around simply stops opening. Your work is still in there. You just can't get to it the way you used to. The tool goes silent, and everything you made with it sits behind a key you no longer hold. People were furious. There were petitions. There was real anger. Artists who'd given the company 20 years felt something turn cold. And then something happened that tells you everything about how a mold actually works. They paid anyway. Not because they were weak, because by then the walls were already up. The format held their past, the habit held their hands, and the rent was just the sound of a door closing behind a room they'd already been living in for years. Now let me show you the number, because this is where most people go quiet. Last year, that patient little rental business, born in a garage named after a creek, pulled in almost $24 billion. 9 out of every 10 of those dollars came from subscriptions, money that arrives every single month, whether you open the app or not, whether you made anything or not. And here's the part that should stop you cold. Take $100 a customer spent in 1 year. The next year, on average, that same customer came back and spent more than $130. More, not less. The people annoyed enough to complain out loud were, quietly, paying the company more the following year than the year before. That is not a company selling you a product. A product is something you buy and walk away from. This is something else. This is a company that became the floor you stand on, and nobody shops around for a new floor. You just keep walking on the one that's already there, and you call it normal. But I need you to feel the whole truth of it, because if you walk out of here thinking, greedy company, got it, you've missed everything that matters. Remember the 2 men. Remember the creek. They solved a real problem. They gave the world a language that just worked, back when nothing worked the same way twice. For years, genuinely, that was a gift. Designers built careers on it. Whole industries stood up because of it. The gift and the trap were never 2 separate things. They were the same thing seen from 2 different decades. What felt like freedom in 1993 is what holds your wrist today. That's the nature of a mold. It never feels like a cage while it's forming. It feels like relief. It feels like, finally, something that just works. And that is exactly why it's so dangerous. Because right now, while you're nodding along, certain this is a story about Photoshop, those same 3 walls are rising again. Somewhere new. Somewhere you'd never think to look. Somewhere you actually ask them to. But to see it, I have to tell you what happened. The day the machines learned to make anything. For most of history, the most valuable thing in the world of images was simply the ability to make one. Think about what that meant. A person who could sit at an empty screen and turn it into something. A poster, an ad, a face that never existed. That person held a rare kind of power. It took years to earn. It took the tools. It took the mold. Scarcity was the entire game. And Adobe sat right on top of it, renting out the only ladder tall enough to reach. And then, almost overnight, that scarcity died. You know the exact moment I mean. The moment you typed a sentence into a box and a picture appeared. No layers, no 15 years of shortcuts, no craft, no calluses, no long apprenticeship. Just words, and then a thing. Suddenly everyone could make anything. The empty screen stopped being frightening. The power that used to take a lifetime to earn was now sitting behind a free login, waiting for a 5-year-old. Now stop and think like the company for a second. If the one thing you spent 4 decades being the best at just became free for every person on earth, what do? Most people assume Adobe panicked, and some of that is true. The stock got punished, down roughly 1/3 in a single year. The market started treating this quiet giant like a patient in a hospital bed. And the videos began. You've seen them. It's over. It's finished. The machines finally killed them. But underneath all that noise, something far smarter was happening. Because Adobe asked one question almost nobody in the audience thought to ask. If making an image is now worthless, what is still worth money? And the answer they found is the whole reason I'm talking to you tonight. When anyone can make anything, creation isn't the scarce thing anymore. The scarce thing becomes safety. Let me make that real, because it sounds abstract until it's you. Imagine you run a company, a real one, with lawyers, employees, a logo people recognize. You use one of those free tools to make an image for a campaign. It's beautiful, it's instant, it's free. You send it out to 1 million screens, and you feel clever for saving the money. And 3 weeks later, a letter arrives. Because that original image the machine handed you, it learned to draw by studying millions of pictures it was never given permission to touch. And buried somewhere inside that gorgeous result is a shape, a style, a fingerprint that belonged to someone real. And now that someone has a lawyer and a copy of your campaign and your company's name. That fear, that quiet sinking, what did I just put my name on, fear? That is the new scarcity. That's the thing money hadn't yet figured out how to buy. Except Adobe did. They built their own machine on the walled garden, only images they had the rights to, no stolen ground underneath it. And then they did the thing the free tools cannot afford to do. They looked their biggest customers in the eye and said, use this, and if anyone ever comes after you for what you made with it, we will stand in front of you. We'll cover the lawyers. We'll take the hit. Sit with what that actually is. They stopped selling you the brush. They started selling you the promise that no one will ever sue you for the painting. That's a pivot almost no one has said out loud. In a world drowning in infinite, effortless, free creation, the one thing that got more expensive, more precious, more valuable was permission, was cover, was the right to sleep at night. The machines made creating free, and in the very same motion, they made innocence something you have to buy. The customers lining up for it aren't buying at all anymore. They're buying an umbrella in a storm the machines themselves let loose. Adobe didn't drown in the flood. Adobe walked to higher ground and started selling umbrellas to everyone still standing in the rain. And here is where this stops being a story about one company and quietly becomes a story about you. Because if you understand this move, give the creation away, sell the safety, own the ground beneath both, then you're holding the blueprint, the mold itself. And once you can see its shape, you cannot unsee it. You'll start seeing it everywhere, starting with the app you opened this morning, certain it was doing you a favor. So let's go find it. The place where the mold is forming again, right now, while we talk. And I'll warn you, it's closer to you than Photoshop ever was. Hold the 3 walls in your hand, the format, the habit, the rent. Now let me describe your last week. You opened an app. You typed what you wanted. It gave you something back. An image, a paragraph, a plan, an answer. And when it was good,
You felt that small, warm thing move through your chest. This is helping me. So you came back the next day, and the day after. You started to trust it. You started to lean your weight on it. That's not a purchase. That's a wall going up. The second wall, the habit. Your mind is already learning a new set of shortcuts. Except this time, the shortcuts don't live in your fingers. They live in how you think, and you cannot uninstall those. Now the first wall, the format. Every prompt you write, every correction you make, every time you say, no, more like this, warmer, shorter, more like me, you are teaching it. Your taste, your voice, the private way your mind reaches for an idea before you've even finished having it. And every bit of that teaching stays on their side of the glass. You can leave anytime you want. You just can't take the version of the machine that finally understood you. Walk away and you start over, with a stranger, explaining yourself from scratch. Does that shape feel familiar yet? And the third wall is already sliding into place, soft and quiet, the way it always does. Free today, a little more useful tomorrow. And then one ordinary morning, the good version costs money. And the money arrives every month, whether you opened it or not. And you will pay it. Not because you're weak, because by then, the walls will already be up around you, and you'll have built half of them yourself. You are not using the tool. You are lining the mold from the inside. And I want to stop right here for just a second. Because if you're still with me, if you've come this far into something most people would have scrolled past in the first 30 seconds, then you're exactly the person this channel was built for. So let me say it plainly, and then we go straight back in. Subscribe and come sit with us. We take the invisible machines, the ones quietly shaping your money, your work, your choices, and we drag them into the light where you can finally look at them. That's the whole promise here. That's all we do. If that's what you came for, you're already home. Stay. Now, back to the wall, because this next part is the one that keeps me awake. The old mold, Adobe's mold, took 4 decades to harden around you. 40 years of file formats and slow habits and patient, invisible walls. You had time. Your parents had time. A person could see it coming from a long way off and still choose to walk in. This new one doesn't take 40 years. It takes months. Because artificial intelligence doesn't lay the walls brick by patient brick anymore. It pours them at the speed of your own attention. Every hour the world spends living inside these tools is another layer of concrete, poured and set before anyone thinks to ask a single question about who owns the room we're all now standing in. And the genius of it? The very same genius those 2 men stumbled into by a creek, is that it doesn't feel like a cage. It feels like a gift. It feels like finally something that understands me. The most comfortable trap ever built is the one you would defend with your whole heart if a stranger tried to pull it away from you. But here's the piece almost no one is saying. Remember what Adobe learned? When creating turns free, you don't sell the creation. You sell the safety. You sell the promise that nothing you make will ever come back to hurt you. So ask yourself the only question that matters now. As these new machines make everything free, the writing, the images, the code, the decisions, the thinking itself, what becomes scarce? What will you quietly find yourself paying for every single month for the rest of your life? Not the tool. The tool will always be free. It's always the tool that's free. You'll be paying for the version that's safe. The one that won't get you sued or fired or fooled or caught. The clean one. And whoever owns the clean version, whoever owns the ground beneath all of it, will never, ever have to raise their voice again. Just like two men by a creek in a garage, handing something out for free and quietly becoming the floor.
Let's go back to the beginning, to the thing you were holding. I asked you to think about the last file you made, and I asked you to sit with one word: own. You've been carrying that word this whole time, through the garage, through the creek, through the 3 walls and the rent and the umbrellas in the storm. So let me ask you one more time, now that you've seen the whole shape of it, what do you actually own? Not the tool, that's rented, or it's free, which is just a slower, softer kind of rented. Not the file, that's written in a language someone else can change the rules of tomorrow morning without asking you. Not even the skill anymore, not entirely, because the machine is learning the shortcuts now, and it never sleeps, and it never gets tired, and it never once asks for a raise. For almost all of human history, the thing you made with your hands was yours. The bread, the chair, the field, the song. You made it, you held it, it belonged to you and to the people you handed it to. That was the deal. That was the floor everyone stood on, quietly, for thousands of years. And somewhere in the last 40 years, no vote, no headline, no single day you could point to, that floor got replaced. And the new floor belongs to whoever owns the format underneath your work. The company that speaks the language your whole life is quietly being written in. 2 men by a creek were simply the first to understand how to stand there. To sink so far beneath your feet that you stopped calling it a company and started calling it normal. That's the real trick. It was never the price. It was never even the trap. The trick is to become so ordinary, so woven into the floor, that nobody thinks to look down and ask who poured it. And now that same trick is happening again. Faster, softer, closer. Inside the tools you're grateful for. The ones that finish your sentences. The ones that fill some late nights, almost like a friend. And the strangest part, the part I still can't fully shake, is that this time, we're the ones building it. Prompt by prompt, day by day, pouring the concrete with our own hands and thanking the machine for letting us help. I'm not here to tell you to throw your phone into a lake. I use these tools too. I made my peace with a version of this a long time ago. This was never about escape. It's about knowing where you're standing. Because a person who knows they're standing on someone else's floor walks a little differently, chooses a little differently, keeps one small thing back, one idea, one file, one part of themselves that never gets poured into the mold. And a person who never notices the floor at all just keeps walking, grateful, comfortable, warm, and never once looks down. So look down, just once. That's all I've been asking this whole time. That's the only thing we do here, every single day. We look down together. If this made you see the floor beneath your own feet, do 2 things for me before you go. Share it with 5 people who are still walking around like the ground is theirs. And leave a comment, not a kind one, a true one. Tell me the exact moment your stomach dropped. Tell me which tool you thought of when I described the new walls going up. I read them, every single one, and then tell me where to point the light next. Whose empire? Which invisible floor? What's the machine you use every day and have never once questioned? Name it, and I'll go find the shape of it, and I'll bring it back into the light for you. Because there is always another mold. There is always another room that no one is watching. And there is always someone somewhere, right now, standing very still in the middle of it, smiling, patient, kind, holding something out to you for free. You know what to do with that word now. Own. Go on, say it slower this time. And this time, listen to who answers.